that's clear. It's not the fame. It's what?
It's the way the people around you position themselves around you to get in your pockets and in your mind.
Yeah.
That it's infuriating to me.
You know,
there are very few people in the entertainment industry that I respected more than Dave Chappelle. He was just a creative genius who was always very positive, always very unifying, and especially the time before Obama. He brought people together with humor and united everyone in ways that were just unbelievable. Everyone was laughing at themselves, at each other, and in a very great way. And so I thought about this theory a long time ago when he first came out with his Netflix comeback series, and something seemed very wrong. And I'm going to provide you some proof or some different thoughts and theories, some evidence that I kind of use to say, something's up here. How did this really skinny guy turn into this jacked guy who's almost more militant than a comedian? And if he is a comedian, he's an amateur. Whereas Dave Chappelle was a pro. From age 14, he began comedy, and he was unbelievable at really doing everything. Creative mind that would never stop. Like my art, I will never run out of ideas. He was a comedian, he would never run out of ideas. So when people try to say he was blocked or had a creative block, it just doesn't make sense. And then this is what triggered this kind of investigation, is he came out with a story or a new Netflix thing called 846. Not one funny thing about it. It's all very dark, and you can't take the funny out of a funny guy like this. Even though the topics he's discussing are just not really funny, every single time Dave breached subjects like this, because he was a big conspiracy theorist, he would always add humor to it. That was his way of dealing with it mentally, I'm sure, and his way of expressing it and kind of helping the people cope with it. So really take a look at this if you want to see something completely unfunny, but I want to investigate how he began and what maybe made him go away and do the things he did.
Hello, Senator. And we exchanged pleasantries, and then he dropped the heavy on me. He was like, listen, Dave, I'm calling for a specific reason. As you know, McCain is gaining on the polls, and Ohio is proving to be one of the most important states in this election. I understand you're an Ohio resident, and I'm going to be honest with you, Dave. We need your help. Now, obviously, I was flabbergasted, but again, I kept my composure. I said, well, I said, Senator, I've been watching you on the news. I appreciate your message, and I'd like to help you. But, well, I'm a filthy nightclub comedian, and I don't know what a person like me can do to help a person like you. But I respect you, and I'm willing to do whatever it is you'd like me to do if you think that I can help. And he said, Dave, I'm genuinely moved by what you said. Listen, Dave, I need you to stay out of the public eye for a while. I need you to just need you to stop saying nigger on television so we can make things change. We got 4 more years to go. Because at that time, Barack's whole platform was, under my new tax plan, 95% of all Americans could conceivably get a tax break. And I was like, well, that's great, but guess who's in that 5% that's not going to get a tax break? It's me, all right? And that's what it feels like to be me. I work all my life, make some money, and finally my dreams start coming true. And all of a sudden, the black president comes out of nowhere and says, come on, Dave, let's be responsible. Oh, nigga, I just got this money! Come on, Barack. Dave, come on. Think about everybody. Think about everybody.
I'm not exactly positive when that performance was from, but the story he speaks about was when he first voted for Obama. And this show, from this clip right here, was when he did a 4-hour set. So keep these things in mind, because the years kind of are very important. And this is 2010, when he came kind of back on the scene with a local Filipino party, I believe. And he looks a little more jacked, and it kind of makes sense, he still looks like him. He's got the different laugh, the smile, and the mannerisms that make him seem him. And there's just so many things I just really can't ignore and when dealing with this, because it seems like he totally changed. It seems like he went from being someone who would never sell out to someone who clearly sold out and let the people with the money control him. And that was something he would never do. So here's again him, the real one.
You know, I waited a long time to be at a concert where there was a beach ball. A lot of black youth never get to go to concerts where beach balls are passed around. So tonight, in the spirit of cultural diversity, I would really like to kick this shit off. Ladies and gentlemen, Dave Chappelle's first beach ball concert.
His voice was a big giveaway in the newer videos because it's gotten a lot deeper and he doesn't have that high-pitched kind of expulsion like he used to. That was really one of the funniest things. It's like he's incapable of doing that now because he's just, something's different. And this was a 2012 performance. I tried to find ones from every year. This one you can't even see him. It's so blurry, so I can't really tell in this. But keep in mind, he was in competition with Dane Cook to do the longest performances. So he did a 6-hour performance at one point, or 3 hours, 4 hours, and then they basically went to 6 hours. And keep that in mind because when he came back in 2013 and he did Hartford, he could barely do 5 minutes. He claims that the crowd was mean to him and stuff like this, but that would have never stopped the old Dave Chappelle. He claims he ran out of material. Nope, this guy would picked up a book and started reading it and the crowd booed him. I wonder why, because he was terrible. Everybody kind of, you know, he said some nasty stuff too, some really hate-filled stuff about the city. But wouldn't the old one who had been performing for so long have been able to conquer this moment? Instead, the media ripped it as the crowd was bad, all this stuff. But what if it wasn't? What if it was him that was bad? If this was his first performance as a fake and he just failed miserably at it? That's what it seems like to me. Because when he came back, he started doing all the people that we hate, all the talk shows from all the people that we now know are so corrupt, it's disturbing. And the things they do are sick. And he did Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, and the way they talk and the way they laugh, Stephen Colbert. They all interview him, and same with Oprah. And they laugh like, oh, he's so funny, like even when he's not. It's like, you know, they're trying to force it. It's almost like they all know it's not him and they're trying to kind of help him because he's not as good as Dave was. Dave was 100% creatively on his own, creatively independent. He didn't need people to write for him. He didn't need people to laugh at him. And you can tell that when you see the him interview with Conan. So he was even on CNN, you know, people he trashed. Dave was a very intelligent guy. And for him to join forces like this, it's bad.
So then I see a fake Dave Chappelle on Facebook. So I'm like, who is this guy? So I tried to look at his page, and, you know, I couldn't see it unless I was his friend. And then I clicked the thing. He has not accepted my friend request.
Well, he probably doesn't like anyone with the same name.
I have no room for any real Dave Chappelle. So then I go on Twitter, and the same thing. It's like, oh, it's a fake Dave Chappelle. My name, my picture was not me.
No.
So I started following the guy. And it turned out, Jimmy, the guy was like hilarious. He was like,
That's even worse.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this guy's like, he's funny. And then he started having like all this fun, like girls were tweeting him all these sexy messages. I'm like, dang, who is this guy? And then, like a week or two into it, he just turns evil. And he starts like tweeting all this stuff to comedians I work with, and starts like a whole Twitter beef with this guy, Cat Williams. You know Cat?
Absolutely, Cat Williams. Yeah. So fake Dave Chappelle starts to fight with Cat Williams. The real Cat Williams?
Right, well that's the problem, that Cat Williams starts saying things to this fake Dave Chappelle that's hurting the real Dave Chappelle's feelings.
Wow. This is fantastic.
Isn't it funny that now we know their tactics of kind of pointing light at making fun of things that they know are real, just to kind of sidestep the public and kind of lead them astray and kind of make those people that may think that he's fake, that's just a lie. How could he ever be faked? How could he ever be an imposter? Anything like that. But one thing is for certain, he loved Conan O'Brien. Him and him were comedic friends for a long time. And so he was on, look at this, from 1998 to 2006, he was on Conan, he says, about 22 times. And after that, during his comeback, he was never on Conan again. Before this, he was always on Conan and no one else. And then why after, when the so-called Dave's return, did he never return to Conan? I think Conan knows.
Hearing all the stories like comedian Dave Chappelle's in a mental institution in South Africa. And I was like, man, I must be losing my mind. Because I thought this was the beach. And everybody called me crazy. You know, I mean, it was.
You're hearing on the news things like he's gone crazy, which never sounded. That doesn't sound right, you know. And,
well, you know, maybe I know stuff people don't want me to talk about, so
right.
we don't want other people to believe, so they'll call me crazy. But it was a weird thing to get called crazy. At first, it was scary, and then now I feel like it's liberating. Like I feel free, like I can just say what I want to do. What I want. They already call me crazy. So it's like I was in Starbucks this morning, jerking from this lady's coffee, and I was like, I know you read about it.
It's really important to remember where Dave came from, because he did a lot of different movies and different shows, and he wrote for a lot of people, and he helped a lot of people out. He was friends with a lot of people. He was big in the industry, and he really worked incredibly hard to earn his fame and his fortune. And the characters he created were they were amazing. They were purely unique, purely creative. And there's a theory that I'll go into a little bit later that he did a lot of these things and it really upset people like Al Sharpton, Bill Cosby, Oprah, and because they felt they were kind of distracting. He was unifying the people, all races, instead of dividing them. And that's what they wanted. That's what Obama wanted. That was their mission. So they needed Dave to be gone because he was a threat to that purpose and that helter-skelter-like future they wanted.
Fine. I'm glad you're here. Everybody wants to know, why'd you walk away from $50 million?
Well, I wasn't walking away from the money.
Yeah.
I was walking away from the circumstances that were coming with the newfound plateau.
Yeah.
It takes a while when you punch through to adjust to the atmosphere. It was completely outside of my frame of reference. I've been in show business since I was 14, and I've heard the stories of what happens, and I've seen these kinds of things play out in front of me.
Okay.
When
you say you heard the stories, what do you mean? What stories?
I mean, you see before, look, Mariah Carey made a $100 million deal, and 3 months later, she's all of a sudden mysteriously crazy. Or Martin Lawrence punches through when he's waving a gun on the street screaming, "They're trying to kill me."
Yeah, we hear those stories.
And it always happens around the time in their career when it seems as though they're crossing over the next plateau.
Yeah. Would you say you lost your mind, sort of?
No.
No.
Not exactly.
Okay.
I wasn't crazy, but it's incredibly stressful.
Yeah.
And I feel like in a lot of instances, I was deliberately being put through stress because when you're a guy that generates money, people have a vested interest in control.
That is a very important line because he knew that once he got to a certain point that these monsters would come out and really do this stuff. And he went through a lot of stuff that he didn't talk about. I can almost guarantee it. It's what drove him to Africa, for his own safety. And here's a list of his schedules. You can see he did a few shows in the early years between 2006 and then coming back to 2013 till now, he did shows all the time. Like a greedy person that really, really wanted money. Whereas before he kind of did his own thing. He didn't really need to do that many shows. He kind of was more humbled. There's a quote of him saying that he learned a long time ago. Someone told him, once you get enough money, stay that way. Don't go crazy for more. The old Dave shares a lot of life lessons, and it seems like the new Dave seems to just go completely against all of those things. And it's tough to go against a life lesson, especially when you respect those who taught it to you.
Myself here, when I say also, we're very, very excited that you put out these comedy specials. 13 years, like a locust, you have returned with these. Why did you decide to put 2 of them out?
Money.
Money. Why did you decide to put 2 of them out?
Money.
Money.
I did. I just started making them. I made them and then I shelved them, and then they bought them.
Did you make them thinking, oh, I'll sell these one day, or do you think like, oh well, these might not be so timely anymore? I mean, which they are certainly, but did you worry about that?
No,
Not at all.
no, because it's like I don't get mad at a photograph because it's not today.
You said, talking about money, everybody knows that you got a tremendous amount of money. I think, well, what I read was $60 million for 3 specials. 2 of them you had in the closet already.
I literally just took them out of the closet like.
So not only is this new greedy Dave Chappelle a lot different than the old one, but Netflix. He joined forces with Netflix. He was very set on doing things his own way, and he worked really hard for and got the best show in the world so that Comedy Central would give him that right to be free. And then he joins Netflix, the most corrupt production company out there, pretty much run by the Obamas. And then he demanded that people don't bring cell phones into his shows. I wonder why, because he probably had a lot that were botched. And a lot of people are pointing this out too. It really is true. And there's a lot of misinformation out there on the web too, like this. It claims on the web on Wikipedia that he was part of the 250th episode. Yet when he was inside the actor's studio here, it was February 2006. And then the next time, he was in November 10th, 2008. But they claim on Wikipedia that he was in the 250th episode. See, Chappelle to appear here, and it says in the Wikipedia entry over there as well. But on the 250th episode of that actor's studio, it's aired November 10th, 2019, and with Robert De Niro, and did not even have him. So there's some weird misinformation out there. He was on Howard Stern, talking about his wife here, and this is a whole nother thing. I don't really want to go too deep into the family, but there's very few pictures of what I consider the real Dave with his family. Very few. And I'm not sure about this one, but that one, it kind of does look real. I'm not totally positive, but listen to some of the things he says, because his wife is interesting.
And then my wife's still a little salty at me.
She's not happy with you right now?
Well, she's not mad at me, but don't think you're going to walk away from $50 million and your wife's just going to be cool with it.
That's an angle I haven't thought about, yeah.
Oh, it was crazy. I thought I was going to get the Jerry Maguire, baby, you can be anything you want to be speech.
Yeah.
It didn't pan out.
No.
It was more like Purple Rain around my house. Yeah, I know what it sounds like when the doves cry.
Now, okay, I've known you for a long time. You've been coming on our show for a long time. I bumped into you in the street sometimes in New York. You're a very normal, down-to-earth guy. You really do seem like you're very unaffected by all this. Do you think that's fair?
I'm a little weird, but I'm quirky.
Yeah.
But yeah, my life is pretty normal.
Now, he did live a normal life, I believe that, and he kept his family life out of respect. He kept it completely out of the public eye, and I unbelievably respect that. But then this new one, when you look up pictures of him and his wife online, you can only find what I would consider to be the new Chappelle. Like this really jacked, upstanding one. Doesn't look like there's even that much love there, and I don't want to criticize too much again, but she has a very secretive past. No one really knows too much about her. When he went to Africa, he didn't tell her. She apparently thought he was crazy from time to time, so he was probably worried that she would try to lock him up or try to stop him or do something. But all the pictures that seem to exist seem to be from some fake paparazzi photo shoots and different events that are staged.
Music, I'm talking about the Newlywed Show. You know
Right,
what I mean? I've been a newlywed. It's nothing like that show. And I made a show about my first year of marriage be called Bitch, You Tricked Me. But if you're
a romantic fool, yeah.
I'm crazy
Yeah,
about my
yeah.
wife. That's why I see these jokes. Me and my wife. Well, you stop shouting at me. I'm talking.
See, so this one could be solved. This whole kind of little thought could be solved by just seeing a picture of them when they were married or like their early kids or something. But, you know, we know if you look at the former president's children and stuff, there's some weird, sketchy stuff behind there. And a lot of people have found that those are just like adopted kids and stuff. So who's to say that no one else does that in Hollywood, in the entertainment industry? Because we know a lot of them do interesting things with kids. And I'm not going to go down too far on this road, but just look at the Dave. He looks totally different. There's just something, I just can't even totally put my finger on it, but in my heart, I know that it's just a different person. And in those old interviews you see on Conan and his old stand-ups, he's genuinely funny. You cannot resist laughing at him. And now in the newer things, I have not, in any of those Netflix specials, I haven't had a genuine laugh once. And it's not even like out of disrespect or because I've heard him say anything bad. It's just he's not funny anymore. How do you lose that?
I was coming back to the show, and then they were like, "Well, Dave, you should just back up the pneumonia story." And I was like, that was your thing. I'm not backing up a pneumonia story." And then the next day, it was in the paper that I had writer's block. Then I knew something was getting ready to get stressful because I hadn't even started writing. I was on the schedule to write, so I was like, what's going on? Are they going to?
So these are your people trying to feed.
Manipulate. Sounds like somebody's trying to put young Dave in a compromising position. Oprah. But, okay, so then I got worse. So when I said I'm not going to do it, then all of a sudden it was like, well, now he has walking pneumonia. And then I knew long before I walked, I had considered walking.
You had considered
I had considered walking because I went back to work and the vitamin love was gone because it was a real ugly negotiation. It's a situation where now everybody's taking credit for this and that and the other. It was getting ridiculous. And I knew I was going to leave, so I got ahead of schedule and I bounced. And I didn't tell anybody where I was going. The whole time, they're trying to convince me I'm insane. They were trying to get me to take psychotic medication. Yeah. Like I'm sitting around, I was stressed out, but the people that were telling me I was insane, I believed that they knew what was going on. So, this was troublesome.
Yeah.
I said, I'm not taking this medicine, man, because I know these people be trying to control you or maybe discredit you. I was afraid,
But you were stressed out. That's why.
There's no question. But it's very stressful for someone to constantly walk behind you and say, you're insane. Oh, hey, how about this? I showed up to work the first week, and where my office used to be, they built a wall there.
Why?
I didn't know why. But it came out later that they were like, well, they said you wanted it. I don't want to be walled up in the office.
Looking and deciphering Oprah's facial gestures and hand movements is a whole nother story. She seems so compromised and so corrupt and so evil. It's really sick. She's just doing everything in her power in the interview to make him seem crazy. And then he turns into the GQ man of the year. He became exactly what they wanted him to be, exactly what the controllers want him to be, and exactly what he was resisting becoming. He tried so hard to avoid this. And then this new one came out, and he's in lockstep with exactly what they want to do. He even at one point, he was on Saturday Night Live and he said, oh, let's give Trump a chance. He took so much crap for that he had to backtrack because people just were nuts about it. The media went nuts, and he caved to the media. The old Dave would have never done that. So in this election, he threw his support behind Andrew Yang. And yet, there's a quote from his father's funeral or celebration that says this about Dave.
I never realized, I'm a pretty conservative dude as an adult. I never realized why my father raised me in a hotbed of hippie and communist activity.
So in 2010, he claims to be a conservative, and I believe that's what he is. That's what the real Dave Chappelle was. And he's part of that tax bracket now. He wants to save some money. He deserved it. He earned it, and he wants to keep it. I don't blame him. And that's what the people did not want. In order to be part of the media, you can't be a black conservative anymore, really, sadly. But this guy now that they have is an egomaniac. He has to be seen all over the place. He has to have his voice heard. He has to have his opinion made. And for Dave to go from the humble guy that he was to this guy with all the fancy clothes and stuff when he used to just wear slacky clothes is a big difference. And look at how humble he is. You can just tell, and his genuine smile and everything. And I'm a creative too in a different way, but I've always said, I was touring Europe once, and I saw a hole in the middle of the mountains in Italy, and I was like, you know what? I could live there for 100 years with just bread and water and my art, and I'd be happy. Same with Dave. I have a feeling he was the same way. So why is he doing this stuff now?
Did you go to a psychiatric hospital?
In South Africa?
Yeah.
Who? Oh, yeah, that's right. I was so...
I'm only asking because I need to ask.
I gotta get people thinking, all right, who goes from America to Africa for medical attention?
So true.
I cannot imagine.
Yeah.
This sounds like the most irresponsible journalism in the world. I cannot imagine being a journalist and hearing this from these people and just running with it. It was on everything.
Yeah.
As a fact.
Definitely watch that again and just look at Oprah. Her reaction is disgusting. She clearly has something to hide, and he basically slams her in that. He's saying, how could anyone think that? How could anyone think something so illogical? And she laughs it off like she didn't just ask him that question out of a few questions. She is terrible and really sinister, and I'll go into that in a second a little more, but you can just see how hard the mainstream media wanted him to fail. They wanted to make him seem crazy. They wanted to push this ridiculous lying agenda. Why would he ever have conformed to that? I don't think that Dave Chappelle would have. He didn't need the money. Why would he have ever conformed to that unless he was severely threatened? But I still almost don't think he would have.
About Africa was the people. You know, it was so warm, and like I was talking to them about my problems, and they listen like they don't know nothing about Chappelle's show. So they just listening. I'm like, man, I had this show, and I felt like people was trying to control me. I was freaked out. I don't know. I just had to get out of there and walk away. It says $50 million. It's all gone. I'm scared. And they was, hey, baby, they did all this to you, brother. I said, that's how we doing in America. They said, that's messed up, man. They said, but here in Africa, we have a philosophy that helps us get through things like this. You always got to remember one thing when you go through these problems, Dave. And I said, what's that, brother? And he said, I ate a dog today. Just grow up. Get over yourself.
You don't want $50 million? Boo-hoo. Yeah.
Get over yourself.
Yeah.
It happens, man, you know, but it was definitely what you call it, a growing experience, that's for sure.
These interviews with Conan really show such a down-to-earth, genuine guy who learned from his mistakes. He learned from everything. He was a constantly learning person. That's why he always had so much material. That's why he'd go for 6 hours. Just because he knew so much. He was a very smart guy. The guy nowadays is stumped after like a couple minutes. The sets that he did in his return to Hartford a year later was 16 minutes. Like, that's terrible. That's not, there's so many signs that prove it. And there was this one video that was up for a while and then got taken down called the Dave Chappelle Theory. And it explains a lot of stuff about how how Al Sharpton and Oprah and Bill Cosby really tried to take him down, and they kept doing these different threatening things to him. This is claimed to be by a whistleblower who released this information. I definitely recommend you check out this video before it disappears. My computer started going glitchy when I was watching it. But definitely take a look at this because it makes sense. And then he did certain episodes in correspondence with some of their actions that is really ridiculous. You know, he fought back. He was hard. He was a warrior. Like he did Dave Gets Oprah Pregnant. And he did this thing to kind of trigger her. He did that thing with Wayne Brady, kind of imagining them replacing him and then finding someone who would go and be a gangbanger, be a pimp, be a gun runner, be a, like, all this stuff that they wanted him to be to keep the image kind of going instead of making the image more wholesome and just bringing people to light with humor, uniting them with humor.
I was coming back to the show, and then they were like, well, Dave, you know, you should just back up the pneumonia story. And I was like, that was your thing. I'm not backing up a pneumonia story. And then the next day it was in the paper that I had writer's block. Then I knew something was getting ready to get stressful because I hadn't even started writing. I was on the schedule to write, so I was like, what's going on? Are they going to...
So these are your people trying to feed...
Manipulate. Sounds like somebody's trying to put young Dave in a compromising position. Oprah. But, okay, so then I got worse. So when I said I'm not going to do it, then all of a sudden it was like, well, now he has walking pneumonia. And then I knew long before I walked, I had considered walking.
You had considered
I had considered walking because I went back to work and the vitamin love was gone because it was a real ugly negotiation. the situation where now everybody's taking credit for this and that and the other. It was getting ridiculous. And I knew I was going to leave, so I got ahead of schedule, and I bounced. And I didn't tell anybody where I was going. The whole time, they're trying to convince me I'm insane. They were trying to get me to take psychotic medication. Yeah. Like I'm sitting around, I was stressed out, but the people that were telling me I was insane, I believed that they knew what was going on. So, this was troublesome.
Yeah.
I said, I'm not taking this medicine, man, because I know these people be trying to control you or maybe discredit you. I was afraid,
But you were stressed out. That's why.
There's no question. But it's very stressful for someone to constantly walk behind you and say, you're insane.
The same tactics we see time and time again for people who go against the grain and have a voice. They achieve a voice on their own, and then the powers that should never be do everything they can to silence it. So there's a lot of people that claim he was cloned. I kind of claim he was just a lookalike, because when you look at people like this, like Christian Bale, you can still see all through the phases that it's Christian Bale. He never once has a different ear or has a different something else. Even Mac, when he gained and lost a lot of weight, you can still always tell it's Mac. It's the same person every interview, no matter what. You just know it's him. With Dave Chappelle, there's a weird feeling that I just can't shake, that it's someone totally different. Madonna, she very well could be someone different. She's changed over time. Plastic surgery can go crazy. Britney Spears, changed over time, shaved head at a couple points, mind control. Billy Shears and Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney, if he died when he was younger, which I do believe, what would be the incentive to keep the Beatles going? Millions of dollars. You think they're going to let one death do that? Nope. They could put in a fraud and it would be all over. They could just continue the game. They are not, the powers that make all this money are not going to give it up. And I don't believe in this one, but it's just interesting to show how much they do look alike. He almost looks more like him than the fake Chappelle that they've ended up bringing out. But there's a lot of different quotes. A lot of people are realizing it and seeing different things. This guy says those two body types are different. One is ectomorphic from his teens to when he disappeared, and the new one is jacked. The voice is different. The skull's different. It's thicker. His color is even different. It is a totally different person. There's no way around it. I just cannot resist putting this out there, because it's just so important that this unifying force, this beautiful creative man, is not what he used to be. And I don't think it's his fault. I think something sinister is going on, something dark, and I hope we can figure it out.
And I personally applaud you as a guy that, things didn't work out quite as well as I wanted them to. But you stood up, man. And let me tell you something. The whole business is changing. And even though people say that you're not as powerful as you know, television or radio, you're immensely powerful. And the trick is ultimately going to sit in prayer. And by supporting your artists, like the 17-year-old that's making a global round, that you can get music that you want to hear, whatever that music may be, you guys are pretty much driving it, whether you know it or not. You drive by the way you spend your money, you drive by when you use your voice to speak up, and you drive it by anytime you buy a ticket to come to an event like this, you drive it. So drive responsibly. Don't drive us out of any lucrative deals. It's not bad to be rich. Money isn't bad. It's the things that we do for money. I mean, the things we do. Money is amazing. But man, the more that we can just get together, and the more we can talk about it, and the more that we can let each other know we support one another, I'm sure things will work out just great.
So I'm not sure what the last showing of him in reality was, what the real one, who I think was, but it happened at some point. And there's a video out with his cousin who's got her voice distracted, and she tells an amazingly long story about how she believes he was cloned and about all these different kind of other incidents that happened that she seems to know about. I definitely recommend listening to that as well. But really, I mean, who knows? It's just this last one that he did just really made me have to do this, because I know the Dave Chappelle used to be, and the feeling I used to get from watching Dave Chappelle when every single episode for the entire week after, the entire culture around the entire country was changed. I could see how people would be threatened. People with Obama's agenda would be threatened by this because everybody was unified by that. You'd be on the bus and subway in Boston and people would be yelling different things and everyone would be laughing. Halloween, so many people dressed like him. Concerts, you'd hear people yelling things like about Dave Chappelle quotes. It was unbelievable. His power was unmatched by any celebrity ever. And when people are funny, they don't just lose it. I know a lot of funny kids, a lot of funny actors too, that remain funny throughout their entire time. Mel Brooks, he never lost his funny. I have a lot of friends, they never lost their funny. I'll never lose my little bit of funny. But this guy, is impossible for him to lose one of the most amazing senses of humor to turn into someone that seems very militant, very abrasive, very egomaniacal, and not very humble or genuine at all, and with something to hide. It looks like he has something to hide. And again, this is just a theory. I could be completely wrong. Maybe I'm just seeing this in a certain way, even though I have no real reason to see it a certain way. It's just really a gut feeling, and I'm not the only one. People that I know can see a big difference in this guy from the one before, the really skinny guy. He really changed, what kind of, whew. And they have lookalikes all over the place. Every celebrity has a lookalike, so if not many of them. So it'd be easy to train someone like this to do your agenda, to fulfill the destiny of what these people wanted him to do, because they realized he was an important voice, would make a lot of money, and he could not be compromised. And the powers that should never be hate that above all. So, Dave, wherever you are, the real one, God bless you. I hope you are safe. Hope you come back. And maybe I'm wrong. If someone can prove me wrong, that'd be great. Maybe Dave will prove me wrong or something. But I hope the new Dave starts taming himself down, becoming a little nicer, and discover that sense of humor again, because you definitely lost it, or you don't have it. It took a lot of skill for Dave to become the way he was, and this guy just doesn't have it. It's an amateur comedy hour listening to this new guy. It's pathetic. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear them. And until another unifying comedic force comes along, we all have to be that sense of humor and keep the world laughing again, because the comedians of the entertainment industry now are just not funny. And Dave, this new fake Dave, fits right in with them. Wish we had the old one back, and a lot more people with genuine skill need to come and make America laugh again. Because in Dave's latest Netflix performance, you will not find any laughter there. And you can also find him where he tells that his father's grandfather was a slave. And this is a new part of his history, because at his father's funeral, he had this to say.
When he was living in the South, he would tell me stories that had a duality to him. His grandfather was rich.
There are just too many inconsistencies to not question what is real and what is not, and what has happened to the real Dave Chappelle. You have to question it when factoring all these things in. And I hope someone gets to the bottom of it at some point, and the reality comes out, because a lot of people are being duped again, and that's what this culture is, one giant dupe session. So bless you all, and continue to quest for truth. Research everything I said and watch The Chappelle Show. It's funny. And for all people striving in the comedy field in the present moment, please try to unify the people. We need it. The world, America, everyone needs to laugh. It's the most powerful weapon we have, and the real Dave knew that. The new one does not. Bless you all. Love everyone.